the question that she would always get is like, what are you? And for her, the way she explained it is she said it felt dehumanizing. Like it made her more of an object versus a person, because she would get it constantly. Like she was very attractive and she definitely got like a lot of attention. And I would say even prior to her mentioning that, I was of that mindset to be like, oh wow, like what is she? She's gorgeous. She's different. If she was a Pokemon, she would be like a legendary, like one of those rare.
We all got an opinion, but can you back yours up? Where you get your sources from? Hope that don't got you stuck. We gon' check you and your understanding of knowledge. That's regardless if you finished school or went to college. Not everything is as black and white as it seems. This show here is about expressing what you mean. Whether you get canceled or whether you get flagged. Welcome to the Cancel Podcast with Elliott and Jay.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Cancel Podcast, where we aim to challenge one's own thoughts by bringing unique, creative, and potentially divisive topics to the table for discussion. As always, it's your boy Darius, aka Jay Sarad, representing Legendary Media Group. And today, I have three special guests with me as we're going to talk about being biracial in America. So let me give a quick little intro. Well, actually, no, how about we give intros? I do intros yourselves, so I think this would be like a good little intro to why you're interested in this topic and why you chose to actually participate in today's episode. So whoever wants to volunteer, they can go first.
Lord. Okay, yep, she's got it. She said she got it. That's
I'll just say my name and what race I am. My name's Klarissa Go, and I'm half Chinese and half Filipino. And I just want to do this podcast to get people more aware about it stuff.
All right. Guest number two. Whoever wants. Yeah. Go ahead, Dre.
Well, my name is Deondre Harris. I go by Dre sometimes. I am half white and half black. From the Midwest, so yeah. And I just want to, make people aware of, some of the racial tensions between the whites and the blacks, and kind of, educate on those things,
Okay. Guest number three.
Hello, I'm Jazmin. I'm African American, Chinese, and European. And so I'm not biracial. I'm just a bunch of things, but
bunch of things put together.
Bunch of things. And I'm just here because I think it'll be something interesting to talk about. And I like to hear other people's opinions on this topic as well.
Okay. Well, one thing I do like, so a little bit about my background too, African American with a splash of Choctaw Native American. I don't know the percentages yet. Haven't did my my ancestry.com or my 23andMe, not yet, but we'll see what happens. But the one thing I'm looking forward to kind of discussing with y'all, since we do have a diverse group of individuals, like we have the male and female aspect, we have the white, black, we have the Asian, the European. I think we have like a good mixer to kind of speak on some very unique kind of experiences that you all had, that maybe I've had, but also maybe not, but also something that a lot of individuals may not have seen by not having to be biracial and coming from two different sides of two different families. So I wanted to start it off and kind of say, so in regards to your background, is there one particular one you gravitate towards more than the other one? And is there like any reasoning behind that? Or, do you feel pressured to go one versus another?
Yes, 100%. I lean towards more my Filipino side, only because my grandparents in the Filipino side of my family raised me when I was in the Philippines, and my Chinese side of the family never really got to know us, only because in the Philippines there's a huge racial segregation between Chinese and Filipinos. And when I was born, when my mom and dad gave birth to us, they never really wanted to get involved in us, unfortunately. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So overall, would you say that's something that has kind of continued even like as you gotten older and became like an adult and everything?
So
or have you? Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. So yeah, good thing you asked that actually. Right now, I'm a little bit more hesitant to be, connected with my Chinese side of the family only because I kind of hold like that little grudge, that they never really took care of us when I was growing up. But now it seems like they are trying more. Only I think mostly because, my father's like gone. My father's passed away, so they're trying to communicate with us more. So
Okay. I am sorry for your loss also on that.
sorry.
So would you say like you're more receptive of them kind of like putting forth that extra effort? Like I know it's time lost, but do you think that's something that you would openly welcome into your life like later on and as you continue to grow?
Yeah, I think so. I'm trying to get over it, but soon it'll happen. Yeah.
There's still gonna be like a little bit, like a little grudge there.
Kind of.
Okay. Jazmin, Dre, what about either of you?
I guess I'll go. I definitely gravitate more towards the Black side. Not only because I am, a little bit darker skinned, the majority of the biracial, especially within my family, and a lot of the people within my family on my mom's side, which is my Caucasian side, are biracial. So it kind of phased out. There's still definitely some Caucasian, but there's a lot more like Hispanic and Black kind of phasing out of the generation as we go down, especially in my generation. So.
And would you say, because I know you mentioned like you're from the Midwest, so knowing that general geographical region tends to be like a little bit more conservative, and me knowing you're a little bit more liberal, has that also caused any kind of like turmoil within like your family, within your household, kind of having those different kind of views, especially on like things like Black Lives Matter, various kind of, protests and how they could be seen. And I'm just, assuming could be seen from different lights.
So, I would say that my dad's side was more moderate Democrat, and my mom's side was definitely moderate Democrat. The only side that was, I would say, moderate Republican is my mom's dad's side of the family. They're definitely less receptive of the Black Lives Matter, a lot more educating. They've came a long way, but I would say that, if like Democratic Party goes on my mom's side all the way back, they're all Democrats from civil rights movement. So like it's kind of just more of like my grandpa's side, but he'll come around.
Have you ever felt like pressure from either side in terms of like trying to either for them to understand your views or for you to try to help them understand you? Has there ever been like an additional push where you kind of felt like it was more of like a conflict that you have to overcome, or has both sides kind of been more like receptive and understanding?
I think that my grandpa's side of the family is definitely still kind of, there's mixed, but my grandpa is moderate Republican. So, he understands and he's kind of grasped some issues. He just kind of goes into the other sideism aspect of it and like, why would you do this? Why are they rioting? Why are they doing this? Why are they doing that? And I'm just like, well, Grandpa, they're not listening to us, so I don't know what you want us to do. There's definitely been some like, especially over the Black Lives Matter and other political figures that were around that time, that I definitely think that there has been some not really heated, but just some thoughtful conversations, kind of seeking understanding on both sides and kind of like more of agreeing to disagree and taking different aspects of it and understanding it more.
Okay, and so there is like a level of understanding where both sides can kind of like meet in the middle and really, have like a healthy conversation about the differences.
Yeah.
Okay. And Jazmin, what about you?
Well, growing up, I mostly lived with my mom and my stepdad. And so mostly my Black side I grew up around. And I grew up around my Chinese side also, but mostly around my Black side is what I gravitated towards, I guess, like as a child, but also like I don't know if most mixed kids go through this, but kind of like an identity crisis. Like when you're like, I don't know who I am or which side I'm on or whatever. And then at a really young age, I just got to a point where I was just like, I'm just me, whatever. And you don't really, because there's like a lot of stereotypes too. It's like, what side do you gravitate towards? It's kind of hard to that just means like, okay, which side of your family were you around the most, right?
Yeah.
So I mostly grew up with my Black family, but.
Okay. So like, would you say, because that's a very good point too. So it's like more so of where the time was spent initially, that's where you're going to kind of pick up the cultures and really start like internalizing much more than the other side of the family.
Yeah.
That's what you're kind of saying.
Yeah.
Okay. And so so one thing I want to ask too for all of you. So in addition to in the household, like what is it like being a biracial person on a general social level? Like what are some of the experience that that you all may have had that you feel like may not be I'm not going to say that will be more rare for individuals who may not identify as biracial?
I would say like growing up school wise, like it was really hard to identify which people I go with. And when I try to like, talk to like Chinese, friends, they're all talking Chinese and I'm just like, and then when I go to like my Filipino friends, they're like, they know more about it too. And I'm just, I'm just stuck in the middle. And I thought growing up, like in my high school, middle school here in America, I thought it was just me until like I started talking to like more, mixed people that went through the same things as I did. So that felt really good.
Do you feel like it was harder to kind of find like other, like especially like with your particular background, do you still feel like it is difficult to come across other individuals like you as well?
Now that I've grown up, social media is more out there. You can definitely join groups that have like similarities as you, whether you're Asian, you're Black, you're, I don't know, you're girl, you're boy, whatever hobbies you have. I think it's more, it's easier now, definitely than before. So.
Right. Like growing up and everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I also feel like back then, like, I feel like things have changed now compared to when we were growing up, because it was like, there were some mixed kids, at least at my schools, like there were some mixed kids, but like not really. There weren't that many mixed kids. It was like, you're either this or you're that. Yeah. And I grew up in Vegas, so it was like, you're either Mexican or you're Black or you're white. And then there's like, depending on what school you went to, there's like a small group of Asians and they just, stayed together. But there's like 4 sides. And if you don't fit in any of those sides, and you're just kind of all over the place.
Yeah. So overall, would you say like it is a hard process? It sounds like, of course, I was saying this too. It's like to kind of like you can only fit into like a certain extent. Is that kind of like the feeling? Like, am I interpreting that right? Where it's like you can do so much to fit in, but at some point it's like, okay, I'm not as deep with this cultural identity as others may be.
Yes.
Okay.
Because they'll even say like, I'm sure everyone's discovered this or dealt with this growing up, but like, oh, you don't talk like this type of person. You talk, you sound white or whatever, right? Or you sound this or you sound that. And it's just like a...
Or like English accent. Where are you from? Here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Jerry, do you want to add on to that too?
Yeah, I was gonna say, as like being a biracial, half Black, half white male, I was definitely pushed more towards the Black side, just by all my interactions. And it was always so funny because my mom would show up to parent teacher conferences and I'd be like, "Where's your mom at?" Like, she's right near.
Oh,
my
wow.
mom. Yeah, because I was very. I mean, I lightened up as I aged. I was very dark. My mom would go into grocery stores all the time and they would ask if I was adopted. My mom had me at 19 years old. So I don't think I could be adopted by 19. It just really like being from the Midwest, I think that there was a lot of mixed kids, but we are I don't think we associate, especially for the ones that you can tell that they have a little color in them, they're gonna be on the black side. Now the black kids, they accept you, but you know, I think that there is some, wouldn't say like pushback, but like you've got to have like an internal champion, you know? Like, cool. Yeah. So, but yeah, no, I think that even like, you know, just as growing up, I just think that I was always pushed more to the black side.
Okay. See, that's a very unique experience because I didn't even think about that before. So like growing up as a kid, so I know like with all of us, like we're very like melanated. Like we all have like the different skin complexions, things of that nature. But it's like I never thought about that aspect of being near your parents and other individuals not being able to identify them as your parent. Like that's something I didn't even think about. I've never had that kind of experience. Like how did that make you feel like as like a kid? Like I don't know, Jazmin, Klarissa, if you had that similar experience as well, but I that's interesting. I did not think about that.
In my like I mean, that was my mom. I knew that was my mom. There was some days where I remember I asked my grandma if I could be Caucasian because I didn't think that I was like, I think I'm Caucasian. She's like, yeah, you can be whatever you want to. And I'm like, I'm not sure about that, Grandma. I'm black. That's what they're going to say. So I think that, you know, there was some like internal like arguments with myself. I mean, I definitely was more like when I would go around my black side, I felt more society accepted, like walking around with them, hanging out with them. But again, I had a lot of biracial cousins on my mom's side, which is my white side. So I don't think it was that much of an issue. I mean, we kind of all, I mean, they always got our moms like, "What? How's that your mom?" That's my mom. So yeah.
Okay. And Jazmin, Klarissa, did you have any kind of similar experience like that as well as like a kid?
Well, for me, actually, I look kind of similar to both of my parents, so not really, but my sister, if you've seen her, she's like just Chinese. Like growing up, she's just like, everyone's just like, are you sure she's not adopted? She doesn't look like you guys. And then when my mom pops up, because she's Filipino and she's with my mom every time, they're like, are you guys related or anything? Like, where's your mom at? Because she looks like Chinese. It's just Chinese. That's what it is.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my. So with that too, so like because then you said like when you were a kid you did live in the Philippines also, right? Okay. So like when your sister was living in the Philippines too, it's like how would everyone else kind of like interact with her knowing that she had like a more racial, more traditional Chinese look? Like were there any differences between like how they would treat her versus how you would be treated?
Yeah, actually, so that's the thing that my sister, I feel bad for her because she grew up in the Philippines just like me. Well, we both grew up here, but you know, I moved in when I was 7 years old. But she would always tell me like, you know, looks wise in the Philippines, they didn't really like it, her look, because she doesn't look more Filipino because she looks more Chinese. That she grew up insecure, and I feel so bad. But the thing is also like my Chinese side of the family gravitated towards her more because she looks like them.
Wow. So there's definitely some imbalances right there.
Yep.
Kind of say like because of the racial disparities, not disparities, the racial differences, that's where it's like the families themselves kind of integrated to kind of say we're leaning more towards this child versus the other one.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Oh wow. So even as she's continued to grow up too, would you say like interacting with her, she showcases more cultural Chinese background?
Oh yeah, no. 100%, because she's actually the only one that went to like a different city for like 3 years to learn how to speak Chinese out of all of us. Yeah.
And you all like applied and everything too? Or
well, that's the thing, like I don't know why, but for some reason it was just her that they took in and, you know, tried to teach Chinese. So she did definitely gravitate more towards the Chinese culture aspect as opposed to two of my other siblings and me.
Okay. Wow. Okay, so I do have a follow-up question on that. I'll Jazmin, you can go next, and I will tie that back in. because especially like in terms of like the Asian cultural side, this will be a good question for you and Jazmin. But yeah, Jazmin, you go ahead first.
I forgot
If you have any.
question was.
So as Dre mentioned too, in terms of growing up and kind of like you know, other individuals.
With the parents, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I look like both of them. I mean, I look more like my dad, unfortunately, but I kind of look like both of them. So, I mean, they're both like, we're all around the same skin color, so there wasn't any obvious differences. The only thing I experience is like when I'm with my grandma who's Chinese, people kind of like, oh, you know, it's kind of weird. And then she'll be like, we were at because my grandma has chickens, we're at a chicken show. And this is in Texas, by the way. And we're like one of the only like minorities in there. It's a chicken show. And people are like, oh, who's this? And she's like, oh, this is my granddaughter. And they're like, what? You know, just like taken back. Like, oh my gosh, like they're still nice about it. But probably if I looked, you know, obviously Chinese, they probably would already like guess that in their minds without her having to like introduce me.
So have you actually traveled like to China as well? Or like any of like the Asian kind of like area? And like have you felt like people would recognize that within like your bloodline as someone who's part like Asian?
I haven't been to China. I mean, I have family in Taiwan. I still haven't been there. The only Asian country I went to, as you know, is when I lived in Korea. And they just think everyone's a foreigner. So
I have heard about that too. So it's like
anyone else. What I look like. I'm a foreigner. I'm not them. So
okay. So now I'm able to kind of circle back on that question that I was going to ask you and Klarissa too. So this kind of, I remember, I forgot how many years ago it was, but I remember for Miss Japan, there was actually a biracial winner. She was Japanese and she was Black. I'm not sure if she was African-American. She was African, but I just remember that she was biracial and she was half Japanese, half Black. The big controversy was because she won and she wasn't pure Japanese, a lot of individuals didn't actually accept her victory. And she got, you know, hated. She was shunned. A lot of people spoke disrespectfully about it online. And I wanted to kind of see, like, what are your thoughts on that? Because I do know that Asian cultures tend to be a little bit more segregated, almost like traditionally what we face in the States. So what are your thoughts on that situation? Because like they feel, to my understanding, it's almost like a feeling of losing the, the purebredness, the authenticity of what the culture represents and the race. I'm using a lot of double quotes right now. I just realized that.
Clarissa's making a face like,
I don't think it's right that they judge her because she's half something else. I actually, this is the first time I've heard about this. So was she born in Japan or?
If I remember correctly, I believe so. Right, Jazmin, do you know? Or Dre, do you know?
Yeah, I've heard about that story. Yeah, she was born and raised in Japan, and they're just like,
there you go.
Yeah, you look different, so you're not one of us. Even if you're born here, raised here, speak the language, it doesn't matter.
Yep. Culturally, like her entire upbringing is Japanese. Like she would be able to fit in culturally with any other, you know, Japanese citizen. The only thing that was the X factor was, you know, her other ethnicity within her bloodline.
Yeah, no. I think I'm like happy for her for winning and stuff, you know, like I think she, just because she's biracial or like doesn't look like everyone else doesn't mean that she's not representing her country and doing them proud. And I think she is.
Okay. I like that. Yeah, because I'll say even in a more modern approach, like Naomi Osaka, she's biracial as well. And I don't think she's experienced as much backlash, but she has spoken out about like some things that she would get in terms of representing both of her backgrounds. Like now that she is like a very famous athlete, she was very active during like the Black Lives Matter protest, the whole George Floyd situation, but she identifies strongly with both of her ethnicities. So it's like, in addition to her saying that I'm a proud Black woman, she'll also say I'm a proud Asian woman. And it's like, it's interesting to kind of see how she has to forcibly kind of double down on both ends to let both sides know, like, I'm one of you, instead of both sides readily wanting to accept her.
Well, so to go off of another thing about like the, half Japanese, half African, what's her name again? Sorry.
Naomi Osaka, the most recent one?
The other girl.
Let me search it real
I'm
quick.
sorry.
Oh no, you're good.
Research. I'm kidding.
Yeah, Darius, what's up, man?
Okay, so it was Ariana Miyamoto.
Okay, yeah, like Ariana, like I'm an anthropologist and I deal a lot with like culture stuff, and I feel like culture is not just about like your race, it's about like where you were born, who was around you, like your background and everything. And I think it's good that she did win, and it's awesome.
So should we give like a formal shout out? Like, Clarissa's proud of you, Mrs. Ariana. If she ever tunes into the podcast. If she tunes into the podcast, we can absolutely just show her like all the support we're giving her.
I'm rooting for you.
So one thing I want to pivot to is like, so I know we've all kind of like traveled around, whether it's different states, different countries, different continents. So overall, has the experience been different overseas than you've actually experienced in the States? And like, what are some good differences? What are some bad differences? Like, what has your experience been, both within and outside the States? Ooh, hard question.
Well, I haven't traveled outside of the States, so I mean, maybe I could speak a little more onto in the United States. I mean, I've traveled to a lot of the South, and it's just very interesting to me, and this is being from Kansas, that how segregated things are still till this day. Like, I mean, it's just a shock to me that, we still have to be segregated between races and we can't intermingle with each other. I don't know I can't fathom the issues that people white, and I think it is a lot more on the Caucasian white side of the issues. And I think it's pure ignorance. And I told you in the past, I'm not here to educate nobody that is Caucasian or white, unless my family members. So I just think that a lot of it has to do with, kind of just not understanding each other and not wanting to understand. Like, you just kind of want to go off of what your prejudices are, which is totally inaccurate. But, it's just crazy. So that's just my opinion on that.
Okay. I definitely do think it comes with the inherent biases, like you said, prejudice as well, of ignorant people not willing to overcome them. And that's the biggest thing that, it hinders our growth as a nation, since we are a very special nation and having so many different races, ethnicities, cultures within our country. That's the one thing that's kind of slowing progression. It's not slowed, it hasn't come to like a standstill, but I will say there is an area of opportunity that we all could improve on and start learning about one another, knowing the history and really embracing it. So I can definitely agree. Like my dad, he's actually from the South, and yeah, I've definitely heard a lot of stories of post Jim Crow era, how things are different. He's from Louisiana, so a lot of that has not died out completely. And even to be completely honest, like me being from Vegas, a much more diverse city, when I was younger, going to the South, I would still have to be on eggshells to a certain extent. And like, there was definitely awkward looks. It's definitely there. And I see exactly what you mean. And I've witnessed it myself, unfortunately. And I think even what we've seen over recent years, in terms of like various marches, various discussions online, so on and so forth, that there is a still inherent hatred out there. It's up to us to combat it and kind of like move away from it, but it's something that we have to be aware of as well. So I'm kind of glad that it's brought to the light and we realize that it's more common than uncommon. Because I was definitely guilty of it. I thought that I thought things were much better in terms of like unity, in terms of all the different ethnicities and everything. But I think 2020 and the pandemic really did open my eyes personally. I don't know if y'all had similar thoughts on that, but it looks like Klarissa. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying, yeah, I agree. Like, especially after like well, not everyone, but with all the media showing a lot of like Asian hate,
yeah,
just because of COVID, like, and they generalize it to everyone. It came from China, but it doesn't mean that everyone,
exactly, from the entire continent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because, like, in America, they look at Asian people and they just put them in a box and they're just like, you're just all Asian.
Yeah.
And then you go to other countries and it's like, you're not, you're not one of us. Or, even within all the Asian countries, they have things that they don't like about the other one. And, I hear my grandma's rants all the time about these people and that people. And I'm like, well, you guys are all Asian, but, they don't look at it like that. They're not really united like that. But in the United States, they put all the Asians into a box and they're like, okay, you're all this.
Oh, you're Filipino, you're Asian. Oh, you're Chinese, you're Asian. That's just you.
Oh, yeah. It's a very American thing of us, because we're all very lazy. So we just like that over generalization, just to have that big box instead of the actual categories. Yeah. But I think that's a very good point, though. Like, so would you say, like, Jazmin, too, like with your experience, do you feel like we need to actually start being more educated with each other, knowing all the different backgrounds and kind of removing those categories, those overall categories?
I think it's like you don't have to sit there and study literally every little, all the cultures in great detail and all that stuff, But I do think just getting rid of the assumptions, right? Like if you just don't assume anything, then that saves you a lot of, deconstructing that you have to do within yourself. You just look at someone and you're like, okay, I'm not going to assume anything until they tell me, about themselves. Like when people look at me and they don't know what I am exactly, and they start assuming, oh, are you this? Are you that? Are you that? And I'm just like, I like to, humor them. So I'm like, yeah, I'm that, even though I'm not. But, like just let people tell you about themselves or their culture. And then, that's how you learn, is from listening to other people instead of, because you can research all these things all you want and educate yourself. At the end of the day, everyone has their own individual upbringing, which impacts their cultural experience, right? Like we can't just research African Americans and all this stuff and assume that every African American thinks the same way, So I just think just getting rid of trying to assume everything.
Yeah, all the assumptions, the overgeneralizations, things of that nature.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to pivot a little bit, because like I guess this does kind of lean more towards generalizations. So in terms of being a biracial person in the dating world, like romantically, what has those? I see smiles all across the. So this is gonna be good. So I will say, like, what has that experience been like? Because so one common question I've heard, this was actually like very eye-opening for me. I'll never forget. I was in training for something, and there was a cultural aspect of things. And one woman, she was biracial. I think she was. No, I'm not gonna assume. I'm not gonna do that. But I remember the one thing she mentioned was the question that she would always get is, like, what are you? And for her, the way she explained it is she said it felt dehumanizing. Like it made her more of an object versus a person, because she would get it constantly. Like she was very attractive and she definitely got like a lot of attention. And I would say even prior to her mentioning that, I was of that mindset to be like, oh wow, like what is she? She's gorgeous. She's different. If she was a Pokemon, she would be like a legendary, like one of those rare kind of instances, right? But I never looked at it from her perspective, and potentially all of your perspectives as well, on even the wording alone behind that statement. So has that ever happened to you? And like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I get, so when people look at me, I get Cuban or Dominican a lot. So that's because I share a lot of my white features, and I also share a lot of my black features, but I have darker skin tone. So that's why I get that a lot. So a lot of people assume that I'm just Hispanic until I open up my mouth. And then I can't speak a lick of Spanish. And when I speak Spanish, it's the most watered down version of Spanish you've ever seen in your life. But I mean, even when we went to Miami, you remember when we went to Miami, Darius? People would think I was Hispanic. I get that a lot, and that puts me into a different category. But I also get the question of like, what are you? Like, because they're generally confused on what I am, and I'm just like, why do I have to put an identifying, category onto myself of being white and black? Like, why can't I just be Deondre, and why can't we just get to know each other on that level rather than just saying that I'm Hispanic? Which I mean, not even Hispanic, don't even have a lick of Hispanic blood in me. Just go straight to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you're saying like, why is it a requirement for them to dig that deep? Like, why can't they just have the conversation with another person?
Yeah, I think dating profiles, which I'm not good at, the one-on-one, not good at. They have opened up a lot of onion, like, layers of onions that just dive deep into more of like the central, so you guys can know a lot about each other. But I think that helps out, because I put on biracial, because I feel like, I mean, if we get to the level, you're gonna meet my mom and my mom's other family, and they just gonna be all white. So like, I don't know if you've got a problem, and I don't like to use the word reverse racism because that's not a thing in my opinion. But if you've got a problem with a lot of people, you got to know that I am half white.
Okay.
Or the vice versa, which I don't date a lot of white people, but yeah, there you go.
You just had to throw that one at the
just
don't do that.
Yeah, a little footnote.
Just anybody. I mean, you gotta be phenomenal, okay? Vote for days.
Okay, Klarissa, Jazmin, what about either of you?
I don't know if I can follow that up. I have to agree about the whole, like, I want to just be known as me, but I do ask anyone that I date, like when they ask me, what are you? Because I ask them, what do you think I am? Because I wanna know like what I look like to them, and I find it really interesting. Other than that, I realized that a lot of like white male specifically, they like fetishize on like
Asian women. Yeah.
So I like stay away from that. Also, you get what I'm saying, Jazz? Yeah. He's like, no,
don't do that.
Stay away as much as possible. That's all I gotta say.
So other than that, like other than that aspect of like fetishizing, like like have there been any other kind of like aspects that have like made you uncomfortable, made you feel different, objectified, anything like that?
Like I forgot the word is, but when you're talking about how like, oh, like Pokemons were like unique, you're rare. Like I got like I tried a dating site before, and I get like a lot of messages like that. Oh, you look so foreign. Where are you from? Like like all those.
They were light skinned, huh? They were a light skinned black person, weren't they, when they said that? I saw a little.
I'm dead.
Also, I want to make sure, like, so was the Pokemon comparison, like I was trying to do it objectively, but I hope it's not like interpreted offensively.
No. No.
Okay. Cool. Because I was, yeah. Just want to make sure. I don't want to dig like a deeper hole, so I'm just gonna be like, all right, cool. I want to make sure. So Jazmin, what about you?
Yeah, the fetishizing thing, like that definitely happened a lot with like not even just like Black men, unfortunately, but like any type of man that was interested in me, they would always be like, oh, what are you? All that stuff. And I'll just, humor them or whatever. And they're like, oh, you look Blasian, you're blah, blah, blah. And then, they just try to, I feel like they do that so they can make an idea of who you are in their own head. When people want to, ask you like, oh, what are you? And then you tell them what you are. And then they start, putting the pieces together themselves about yourself instead of just asking questions. But yeah, there's like times when it was kind of weird when guys were like, oh, you're the first this type of person that I've ever dated. I don't know if y'all made that face, so I guess y'all got that before, but that's like so annoying, like especially when I dated non-Black guys and they're just like, you're the first Black girl I've ever dated. And I'm just like, well, I ain't even the full thing, so I don't even know if you can
On you.
that.
That's funny. That is funny.
I mean, it's true. It's like, I don't even.
Yeah. So would you say, and I guess it's for all of you, do you feel like it comes from a general interest of like curiosity, or do you think it is something like a little bit more, like Jazmin saying, like a little bit more malicious in terms of the fetishizing part? Like, would you say, like, which one would you say most of your experiences has been? More so of like the fetishizing, or more so of genuine interest? Like, oh wow, you're that. Let me hear more.
Unfortunately, fetishizing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you say like is it like a 60-40, or would you say like it's a 80-20?
Like 70, maybe 70-30.
Okay. So it happens. Yeah. Okay. So most of the experiences kind of made you feel like that way. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think I wouldn't say like an interest. I think it's just kind of like a wanting to do something different aspect of it also. Like,
Okay.
I don't know how to describe that, but I think that there is just a general, I wouldn't say interest, because I think there is maybe some malicious intent behind that, but I don't think I would classify that as just fetishizing. I think it's also cultural appropriation, some other aspects that are behind that general interest, but I wouldn't classify it as fetishizing.
Okay. And knowing that America is kind of,
especially with white folks, especially with Caucasians and some African American men, for example, that go with the Caucasians. I think that there is general interest, but there's like a sub level of just malicious intent. So, and I wouldn't say it in a bad way either. I mean, that's what America shows, is the winner, a white man. So I mean, or white in general. So I mean, why wouldn't you? I wouldn't want to do it, but me being the empathetic way that I am, I understand that path that they would want to go down.
Okay. So that's a point that I want to mention then. So in that case, have any of you dated like another biracial person, like someone who also identified as biracial, and has that experience been better, knowing that they have similar experiences and backgrounds, even if it's not the same two ethnic backgrounds, at least some sort of experiences that they could witness that now you can kind of relate on?
Yeah, I would definitely say I don't like to use it as a chameleon aspect. So we go around other cultures and we can assimilate with that specific side.
Oh, like code switching, like a code switching thing.
Yeah, like I think that that's something that we as biracial folks, in my opinion, are really good at. And I think that someone understanding that is an attraction level towards that. So like, I mean, I think that there's a reason why we are successful as biracial people, because we can float between different social situations and find an avenue that appropriates with that situation. So I think that there is an attractiveness from a biracial point of view to have that same ability or to understand how to move throughout that way.
Okay, it's almost like a additional layer of empathy, you would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Jazmin, Klarissa, do you have anything on that too?
I agree. He said it all.
Okay. Jazmin, you agree too? Anything you want to add on to that?
I agree. I mean, I'm married to someone who's biracial, even though he's like a hot mess, but but like I do think when we're first dating, I do think that it was helpful because that was my first time dating someone that was biracial or mixed or whatever. Mm-hmm. So it made it so it didn't make me feel like, oh, you're the first whatever, that I usually would get. It was like, okay, we both know what it feels like to be, put in this situation. So it does create more empathy and better understanding, I guess. Okay.
It makes sense to me too, because I feel like to kind of remove that whole aspect of like the surprise factor, like, oh, you're the first this and that put together to make this. It's like I wonder if how can I put this? I wonder if that's something that we'll continuously to become better at, because the world is integrating a lot better. And this is definitely much more of like a US issue because, we are the quote unquote melting pot. So this is where all the different individuals from all different walks of life can come here and actually mix. So, because
I think that as there's more mixed people, they could understand that. But I don't think that a one that would identify as more being one race and kind of assimilating themselves with that race could really understand that aspect of it. I think that they would have to be biracial, in my opinion, to be able to kind of, I think that they could associate with, they could probably do some code switching, but there's a different level that biracial people go through. It's like your whole mannerisms, everything changes when you're around one side of the family to another side of the family. What I can get away with on my mom's side of the family, I could never get away with on my dad's side of the family, and vice versa. It's just even from I call on my dad's side of the family, all of the aunts are called by their first name. I would never do that on my mom's side of the family. So it's just a different thing. Like you have to be able to adjust like that.
Yeah. So you would say
I don't think that someone could understand that unless they were thrown in that situation.
Okay. So you would say definitely like the code switching is much more internalized through like the experience. Mm-hmm. So it's much more something like people can empathize to it to a certain degree, but at the same time living through it, that's something that's unique to yourselves. That's what you're saying.
Yeah. It's just like a different cultural and social norms and, whereas I could call my aunts on my dad's side of the family by their first names, but there wasn't much questioning. Whereas you had a lot more input on my mom's side of the family. You know what I mean? Like it's just a adjustment that I can't, like me trying to describe it. That's the only example I could think of. Just the different social norms on each side.
Okay.
But I kind of, with the American traditional experience, I think that's something that Black and whites have always had, that kind of different culture thing and how they raise their kids. And I think that my mom, on the other hand, would understand it better than someone that would have a full white child, because she had to raise a biracial son that was Black.
Yeah.
That identified as a Black man. So she wouldn't have the personal experience, but she would be able to empathize with someone that had a biracial child.
Okay. See, I think that leads to like a very good question that I didn't think of prior, but so what if you all know, like, what has the experience been for like your parents knowing that they're kind of they're bringing in the biracial baby? Like, is there any kind of special nuances to that experience? And I know this is kind of like above y'all heads and everything, but it's like if y'all had any kind of conversation with your parents, grandparents, cousins, so on and so forth, has that been is there any uniqueness to that?
Like, yeah, so like my parents, like I said, in the Philippines, it's like the races like Chinese and Filipino, they're not very, intertwined, like they're very segregated in the Philippines. So when my Chinese side of the family and my Filipino side of the family find out that my mom and my dad wanted to get married and had a baby already, they weren't very they weren't very accepting of it. And it led to my parents having to, try to deal it their own way and make their own money and stuff to raise us here in America, which is a little bit more expensive. Yeah.
So would you say that was kind of like the catalyst of why they decided to come to like America, is like because of that kind of? Oh wow.
Definitely. My Chinese side of the family is like the crazy Asian, but they never, no, seriously, they never helped us. That's why I'm also like a little bit more hesitant on getting to know them, because up until like my father passed away, they never really thought about us,
Right. It was more like a complete kind of cutoff, like they're just there.
Yeah, they're just there, like, oh, hey, yeah, you're here. And then, never really helped us because we're mixed and they didn't want Filipino babies.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's terrible. Wow.
But now I think it's better for them, because I get it, like it's new to them and they didn't want to change that type of like ways that they have, where it's like marrying Chinese all the time, like within like their culture, their race. But now my father did kind of like lead that with the future generations in our family. Now that my one of my cousins in the Philippines, he's Chinese, he married a Filipino, and they're all accepting of it, which is, I'm happy for them. But it just kind of sucks, like knowing that my father had to go through all those things to get them there.
Yeah, like he was the one that initiated that opening for your cousins to actually make that change now and become much more readily accepted.
Yes.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, Dre, Jazmin, what about either of your experiences? Like for your parents and everything?
My parents had, it wasn't a big deal as far as the races go, because they were both mixed and they had another mixed baby, which was me. But I know for my grandma, her marrying and having a child with the African-American man, because my grandpa, he went to Taiwan, which is where my grandma's from. And then they met and came together, and then she moved to the States. And then my dad was like the first, what they call it, first generation American, right? So he was like the first generation American. So learning from her experience, she would always talk about how her family was, like Klarissa was talking about, really against it. And she was kind of outcasted because she was always like the rebel of the family in the first place. But that action right there definitely, outcasted her. But luckily, that side of the family is also very accepting of each other. So even within like my own Chinese family, like I've never felt like othered around them, even if they're all speaking Mandarin around me. Sometimes they'll start speaking Mandarin to me because they forget. They just think I'm, and that was really touching, because that meant that they felt like I was part of the family. So they're just speaking Mandarin to me, even though I can't speak it back to them.
I like that.
But yeah, but in my situation, I've been lucky I never got to meet my grandma's parents because they passed away when I was a baby. But as far as like our other family goes, like everyone's been pretty supportive and no one others our side of the family. So we've been pretty fortunate.
Okay. I'm actually glad to hear that too. Because like you said, like having that aspect of acceptance. So it kind of like really, so like Klarissa was saying, like her cousin is now experiencing that, but it seems like you actually got to experience that firsthand, like with your parents as well, where they didn't have to go through a whole generation to kind of overcome it. It was more so of a general understanding that there are differences, but there's much more acceptance of those differences. So I'm definitely glad to hear that.
Yeah, and like, how are they gonna be like, you can only date another exact racial? If they're already mixed, it's like it's over. There's no pureness anymore.
The pureness is gone. No more thoroughbreds.
It doesn't matter.
And Andrea, I remember you were saying with your family, there's a lot of like other biracial babies, like within it. So would you say like with your parents, the situation was also more normalized, or was there any kind of like shock as well?
On my dad's side of the family, I was in his immediate, so his cousins, his grandma, his mom. I was the only biracial kid for the longest time. So it was a little different on that side, but that was my black side of the family. I would definitely say my mom, I wouldn't say she had a more difficult issue, but I think she saw the issue as the most changed issue. Like, I mean, I think that, like I said, she's adopted. Everybody thought I was adopted. She kind of had to deal with that. She had much support from her mom and her dad. So I don't think it was like a family issue. I think it was more of a societal issue. Like, she as a white woman had to have a conversation with her black son about getting pulled over by a cop, and just do what you've got to do to get your butt to the jail, and I will come pick you up from the jail. Like, don't argue, don't fight. I'm gonna shut the place down after I get there. But I think that was something that she, her white counterparts wouldn't have to experience. So I think that I don't think it was a family. I think it was a more societal and kind of she had
like a more external.
Yeah, she had to move differently than the other moms did. So.
Okay. So one question. This would be our closing question. I don't want to hold y'all up for too long, even though I am enjoying this and I'm learning a lot about, the actual biracial experience too. Like, because everyone's technically mixed for the most part. Like, a lot of people, they won't embrace it. Like, they like to say it's just biracial, it's just the single race, but realistically, there are no thoroughbreds and there's no need to be. Like, we're all people at the end of the day. But the one question I want to ask, let me make sure I read it correctly. It's a long one, so if y'all need me to repeat it, let me know. But so what I was going to say is, with interracial dating becoming more common, and it's predicted around the year 2014 that the population will mostly consist of non-white individuals who are some form of multiracial. So what are your thoughts on this trend? How would you like to see the world change in regards to race relations? And what would you like to say about now leading up to that point? Like, as someone in the present who's biracial, and what the future may hold in terms of the general population.
You're gonna have to ask us individually the 3-part question again.
Okay, so what I'll say, let me see if I can word it a little bit more simplistically. So I will say, what are your thoughts on the future population becoming predominantly biracial?
I think it's showing that we're more accepting of others. Yeah.
Short and sweet from this.
Short and sweet. Also, I forgot
like
what to say, so.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's a good thing overall, but I do think even though someone's like mixed, they can still reject, their other sides, right? And we probably all know someone who's biracial or mixed, but they don't really identify with the other side, and they just identify with this side, or they have, the thing about self-hatred towards, you know, whatever race you are and things like that. I still think those things can still persist no matter how much we mix our genetics up. I think, I mean, hopefully society will stop the nonsense, stop the hoopla, but, you know, at the end of the day, I think it's gonna take more than just, you know, birthing out mixed kids to you know, have everyone, you know, fully understand each other.
Yeah, to get rid of the ignorance. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or the hatred towards, you know, whatever race or ethnicity, because you can be Black or white or whatever, and, you know, have self-hatred for your race, and we've seen that.
Yeah, that is true.
Personally, and in movies also, we've seen that too.
Mm-hmm. And that's also even with you know, the quote unquote thoroughbreds as well, like the single race people. We've actually seen that in terms of like self-hate. So that's a very valid point. Jerry, what are your thoughts?
So my thoughts are kind of like, if we were meant to just stay within one sector of a nation, there would be several little islands all over the place, and we wouldn't have been able to develop.
The continents? I'm kidding.
Well, no, because continents are stuck together, you know.
Yeah. I was just kidding.
South America's stuck. So I just think that it was naturally supposed to happen. I think that our culture aspects, especially within America, and I think it's within everywhere, is gonna have to be able to adapt to those changes. And I think that it's something that if you're not ready for it, you're gonna be definitely pushed for it. And I don't see me having such a close relationship with all my grandparents and all my extended family members. I don't think that someone could just say, no, I'm not going to talk to that person because they're this or not because of that. I think that is going to be like, you know, what Klarissa kind of stated, kind of the introduction. You might get that initial kickback, but I mean, at the end of the day, that's still your loved one. You still share the same blood with them. And if we were meant to stay in one area again, we wouldn't have developed boats. So, I mean, I just think that, you know, if we were meant to stay in one area, continents wouldn't be connected, and we wouldn't be able to develop boats, and we were meant to move around and populate with other people from not our original race, in my opinion.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay. Well, with that, so that was my closing question. So, like, did y'all have any closing statements, questions, or anything like that you want to raise before we're done?
Sounds like you might have another question. You're intrigued.
Oh no, I'm like I would say we covered a lot from all of the questions that I had, and I think all of you kind of painted that experience very well. So I'm hoping that, like, even myself, I'll be able to walk away with some things, hoping that our viewers and our listeners do too. So, but I want to say I appreciate all y'all for sharing like your experiences, your personal stories, whether it's family, friends, romantic, socially, everything. So I appreciate that, and you all allocating the time for me. So, but if there's no additional questions, I'm gonna go ahead and hit this outro.
Is there another script?
No. It's just like
I was making sure there wasn't another script. I was getting ready.
So this little part we'll edit that part out. Yeah, this is just like a little.
Sorry.
It's like the little readout, like the intro.
I was ready for the readout. Like,
yeah, this is
about collaboration. You know, you need to do better, sir. Jeez.
Yeah, I could do that. Yeah, because the one I do, I have like the little script on the Word docs. Jazmin and Klarissa, they both seen it. I have my little. Everything else is natural, but yeah, that beginning and this part, hella artificial.
Wow, you just fake, bro? Like, geez.
Baker.
I like on Family Guy when they're just like, he's a phony. He's a big fat phony. That's me the last 10 seconds of every episode. All right. Let me read off the script real quick. All right. So to our viewers and our listeners, what are your thoughts on being biracial in America? Make sure to leave your comments below, subscribe to our channel for more content, and be sure to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And as always, much love and peace.
Just got off the clock, just got on my chill. Called up my homie Brent to see what be the deal. What you trying to do? I'm just trying to heal. Hella floated, never bloated's what I'm trying to feel. Hop in the whip and